G'day everyone, Paul Stoner, CEO Bigger and Scott, joined today by Angela Stefanis, who's from our Elsternwick office, who were Office of the Month for December. Congratulations,
Thanks,
mate.
Paul. Thank you.
Well done. And you're a new person to the table. We haven't done this with you before.
Oh, well, first time for everything.
Yeah, so we are, it's the 23rd of January now, and we're talking about December, so we've got the opportunity to talk a little bit about December and a little bit about January.
Mm-hmm.
So first December, your Office of the Month, because you guys did some transactions, which in November wasn't looking like there'd be many in December. So how did it come together, you think, for the office?
Well, we did have a little bit of, let's say, stock that was lagging or that hadn't been sold at auction, which seems to be very much the case right now with the market. Most properties, I would say, are taking longer to sell, or as we're saying, longer days on market. And the auction process now is becoming more of a process. So rather than knowing that we'll get a result on the day of the auction, we are finding that in a lot of instances it's taking longer to find the buyers, and December was really a reflection of the fact that we did have some properties that hadn't sold in November, and we mopped them up over December.
And in a lot of those cases, it's not necessarily taking longer to find the buyer, but the buyer to get approval for finance.
Well, that's
which
also
has been very interesting.
Exactly. Well, the financial environment has definitely changed, obviously with the Banking Royal Commission, the pressures on the banks. They've tightened up on their lending criteria, and we are finding a lot of people who did have pre-approvals having to revisit them, and potentially finding that those same levels are no longer there. Yeah,
it's interesting. So the Richmond office earlier today was saying they're going to 5-week campaigns now for auction, and I was just interviewing Daniel. He's talking about auctions are still very prevalent in the area. So, so the market where you are is used to auctions.
Yes.
And it's just a matter of, are you dealing more with the vendors on what to expect? This is kind of what's happening now. We'll uncover the buyer during the process, but it may not sell on the day.
Exactly. Well, that's definitely, if you like, part of our new approach where we're educating the vendors to potentially expect the property to take longer to transact. I still think in the vast majority of cases, at least for our market, auctions are still working or the best vehicle to get a result. However, it may not happen on the day of the auction, and we use the auction as momentum, and hopefully it'll unearth a buyer sooner rather than later, and still have a cleaner transaction.
And which is difficult for auctions. I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't have an 8-week campaign for an auction. It's just, how much money you've got to spend on ads. But this manufactured market is a really difficult one to deal with because the Royal Commission has created fear in the finance companies, and the reality is they won't touch people with too much risk.
Well, it is becoming that sort of market right now that from an agent's perspective, if you can find a qualified buyer, you need to treat them with kid gloves. Not that you shouldn't treat buyers with kid gloves even in a bullish market, but right now buyers are gold, and if you can find a buyer who can perform or who's motivated, you really should be doing whatever you can to establish a relationship with those people and try and see if you can nurture them to the finish line.
So the old database conversation, really interesting, but the email that I sent out last week, it is we need to be very close to the vendor, very close to the buyer at the moment, and nurture them through, as you just said, to a result.
Definitely. I'd say relationships nowadays have always been critical, but even more so now, and not only the relationship with your vendor, but again, establishing long-standing or at least trustworthy relationships with buyers and showing them that you're there ultimately to help them and not focus on the result, but to focus more on the process.
So December we saw a distinct lack of new buyers turning up at open for inspections, and you've been back for 2 weeks or 3 weeks like me, but not too many properties live on the market yet. How does the inquiry seem to look for Elsternwick this early in the year?
To date, I would say we're still in holiday mode. I still believe a lot of the buyers are still relaxing, haven't really come back or haven't really switched back into looking for real estate.
Yep.
And it's probably also a reflection potentially of just the current environment, given that prices have obviously retraced.
Yep.
There's no real pressure or no real sentiment out there that buyers have to panic.
Yep.
I think they're taking a much more relaxed approach right now.
Yeah, okay. But you will see, so the Austin market, so let's assume we're talking to new sales guys at the moment. So the Austin market is it's an educated, it's a dynamic market, and they're usually big sales.
Yes.
Right? So they go away, but you guys now will start hitting your databases pretty hard, and you won't launch things until Feb, I'm assuming. So
yes, that's right.
When Billy gets back from Noosa,
it's good for some.
he's ready to start doing some auctions.
Yes.
Because stock levels, I haven't seen it through Bayside yet, being a Bayside boy, isn't there yet. There's a distinct lack of stock. Yeah, and everywhere I go, people are asking me how the market is. Well, have a look at the stock levels. It gives you an indication.
Exactly. So I think it's a little bit of a catch-22 right now. We've got reasonable stock levels about to come on.
Yeah.
However, I would expect that'll be the case with our competitors as well. So all things being equal, I would say over the next 2 to 4 weeks, we'll get, if not a flood, but at least more properties will be released onto the market.
Yeah.
And potentially, I think we need at least another, say, 8 to 12 weeks of activity before we can sort of start drawing any parallels or comparisons between how last year finished and how this year's going to take off.
And the question really is, and Daniel and I just touched on it, calling those buyers that you know and even appraisals that you've done in the last 3 months of last year, is 2019 the year that you want to transact?
Exactly.
Because the reality is, the answer is yes, let's make that happen. Because life will go on, whether it's up or down, and I'm assuming it's going to be just normal. You want to transact? Let me help you.
Well, I think fundamentally nothing's really changed. Of course, there will be concerns and a little bit of nervousness around politics, the banking situation, but ultimately banks can only survive by lending money, so I think those controls will have to become a little bit more flexible sooner rather than later. And, as you say, the sun goes up, the sun comes down, and people need to get on with their lives.
There's a lot of theories around this whole... We haven't seen it before, this manufactured market, but it's a lot of theories around it. People say it'll keep on going down, but the reality is there needs to be turnover, there needs to be taxes, there needs to be loans, and that's just the way the world goes around.
Exactly. So I think the only potential difference is that what I would call the more aspirational buyers, the ones who are probably looking to step up from a lifestyle perspective and who need the banks to assist them, they're probably the ones that might have to sit on the sidelines. But people who have got good equity, who are financially sound, I think right now cash is king as well, so those people who are in a position to buy, right now I would be definitely promoting the opportunities where value right now is probably as a
cashed up upsizes, great market. Great market.
But the one thing I say to a lot of my vendors as well, because ultimately it's also about making sure you're listing properties with vendors who are motivated to transact, rather than vendors who might still be thinking 6 or 12 months ago, is that whilst the numbers are different, i.e. the prices have obviously retraced, the value hasn't changed. It's the 10%, 15% decline is across the whole market. So their dollar is still buying the same product, just a different price point.
And if there are any vendors watching or potentials, get close to the agents that you can see have been doing good things with you, because if they're communicating well with you, they're communicating well with buyers, and you want an agent who has buyers.
Exactly.
You know, not someone tells you they have buyers. You want them to have proved that they communicate well, and that's there's a big difference, as you know.
Of course, and that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on is having a very qualified database and keeping very close, especially with those buyers that have missed out, and we know who are active and ready to go. All right, mate. Well, first time at the table, he's done a good job. Thank you, and congratulations again on Office of the Month. Thank you very much. And here's to 2019. Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.